What's up everybody? Welcome to the kitchen. So first video inside. It is windy outside and I was a little worried about the lights getting knocked over and wind noise on the microphone, so decided to bring it inside. You know, as we approach the winter months, we're going to be inside more often. I'm not saying we won't be cooking outside, but I'm probably going to do most of my filming on the inside. And today, you know, it's December, early December, and what I wanted to do is just kind of look at some gadgets, some tools that are on the market to help improve your cooking game. You know, maybe you're looking for a last minute gift for someone. Maybe someone in your life, your spouse or something, is saying, hey, I need a gift idea. Can you give me one? Or maybe you've just been extra good this year and you deserve a treat yourself. Usually at Christmas, depending on the year, I usually like to buy myself a treat. So nothing wrong with that, no judgments. But, you know, so I want to talk about a couple different things. First things we're going to talk about here is thermometers, right? There's a lot of different options out there. And a thermometer is really important to nailing that cook. You know, whether you're just grilling a chicken breast or you're smoking, you know, pork, maybe doing a brisket, something like that, right? Cooking a steak, right? Certain things are done at certain temperatures, and then especially when it comes to beef, depending how you like it, it's going to be a certain temperature. So having a good thermometer is really critical to helping you achieve success easily. First one we have here is a Thermopen. This is the Mark IV. So fourth generation. Really the big difference is that our digital temperature moves, right, depending on what you're trying to do. It also lights up, and it's now waterproof or water resistant. But you know, this is kind of the go-to. You're going to see this on a lot of barbecue channels. But whether you're into barbecue or cooking in the kitchen, this thing gives you a super fast temperature and it's very, very accurate. So, you know, you can usually find these on sale, probably $85. They're usually around $100. But you know, this is something you're going to buy once and you're going to use it for a very, very long time. So don't skip on that. They do have this Thermopen Dot, and what it is this one actually lights up and moves around as well. They're a lot less money. I'm not sure that they're quite as accurate as these ones, but they had a giveaway. And once in a while, you know, you're trying to use a couple different things. It's just nice to have some thermometers for reference. So, you know, if you don't quite want to spend $100, I want to say these things are like 25 or 30 bucks. They're not really that expensive. That'll be a great starter thermometer. Since we're talking about ThermoWorks, this is one of my favorite things. This is the Smoke X, right? So this guy comes in two different series. Smoke, normal one has 2 channels, and the Smoke X has 4 channels. Now the big thing here is that this has got some phenomenal range, right? So the Smoke X, unfortunately, if I have it out on my grill, I'm using my remote and I go into my basement, I don't always have signal, and it really used to annoy me. So I decided to get the Smoke X, and the range on this thing is phenomenal. I can literally go to my neighbor's house, be sitting in his garage, having a beer with him and monitoring my cook. And you know, we're talking going through part of my house, all of his house, because his garage is on the other side, and still have signal strength, no problem. So definitely worth it if you're worried about signal issues. But the great thing about it is that, you know, we can have a pit probe, and then we can have 3 other temperatures depending on what you're cooking. But this just allows you to really monitor your food. It uses the same technology as the Thermopen does, just in a slightly different design, and you've got a wireless remote for it. So definitely like that. Finally, what we have here is we have a Meter Plus. So you see a lot of these out there, and what this is this is a wireless thermometer. So the reason why I bought this guy is if I'm doing rotisserie, I can stick this in the meat, no wires, and it'll give me a great temperature. And this end here will give you pit temperature. So it does give you both. My frustration with this is that this block has to be, I think, within 15 feet of the main one, and then the rest will go wireless when you have the Plus. But if the weather is not the nicest outside or whatever, sometimes that's not really an option. And I've had mixed results with it. When it works great. But sometimes for me, for whatever reason, I just don't get the signal, and it'll lose connection. It'll reconnect, no problem, but it does lose connection. And you know, I'm in IT. If you can't tell by my shirt, I've been in IT for 25 years, and my wireless in my house is rock solid. I can go to the back of my fence and control all my Sonos and everything, no problem. So it's not a wireless issue in my house. I will tell you that my first one of these, I always had problems since like day one with it, and I talked to Meter Plus and they sent me out a new one, and I think what happened was I just had maybe a bad wire or something inside, because this one works far better than the last one did. And if you decide to get one of these, don't twist. You don't want to be twisting the end because you can hurt it when you clean it, so keep that in mind. Lots of people love these things and swear by them. I just kind of have mixed opinions of them. The last one is not really a thermometer per se, but it kind of fits in the same category, so I really wanted to show it to you. This is a Barbecue Guru, and I got the case with it. Let me show you. The heart of this thing is we have this little fan, and this fan, my plate's outside, but depending on what kind of grill you have. I got this when I had my Komodo Kamado, so it's got a plate that goes in the bottom vent with a round hole on it. You stick that in there, and then you can adjust your fan speed a little bit. And then this is the CyberQ. They've got a couple different versions. Actually, they just came out with a new one that I haven't played with yet. But this will do, you can program your pit temperature, and what will happen is this fan will ramp up and down to help you control your temperature. If you've ever had a all-night brisket cook and you were monitoring it and you were out of bed more than in bed, you'll understand the benefits of these. My first one, I had friends coming over for a holiday event, and I was doing a brisket, and it was the first time I ever did it overnight, and every single time I went down, it felt like I was overcorrecting my temperatures. So I was in and out of bed all night. When they got here, I was exhausted, and I said, you know what, that'll never happen again. So these things are great. I swore I would never have one, but it is nice to have, especially on those long cooks. Don't really use it on the slow cooks. Since I got my Komodo Kamado, I've actually, this is the first time I've opened this up in about a year and a half. I have not used it. The Komodo Kamado is really, really solid as far as temperatures, so I haven't had a problem. But you know, still, if you're looking for more of an advanced control on your grill, highly recommend it. Really like the CyberQ. The other one that's on the market is actually Fireboard. They've got their new one that's supposed to be water resistant. That's one of the problems with this guy. It's not water resistant either. But I have not played with one of those. It looks to be a good product. In my Yoder, it's got that built into it, so I know how it works, and it seems to be very, very solid. Actually brings me to this guy. You can get these on the Fireboard website, and what they are is they're little easy ways to store your thermometer. Now I have a whole bunch. You can see that I've got two up top, then I've got one of my pit probes here, and then a longer one, and then my Yoder is actually running right now, so I've got the two probes from it. But these guys come, I think, in by one or packs of 4. And you know, I've got 6 probes, plus I've got a couple spare ones that are new in the box. But I just love this thing because I can put it together and store my thermometers instead of chasing wires. You know, it doesn't do an amazing job of holding these in place, but it's far better than the alternative. So these things are super cheap. These would be a great stocking stuffer if you know anyone who likes to cook, has some thermometers. It just makes your life a lot easier. So another thing that's great to have when you're into cooking is just a great set of knives. For many years, I had a decent set, but 2 years ago, I decided it was time to break down and just start to buy a really, really nice set. And the thing about having a nice set of knives is that if you take care of them and keep them sharp, you're not going to buy another set. There's no reason to. You know, you spend the money once, and that's it. Just take care of them. Having a good or high quality knife when you're working in the kitchen is just makes things that much easier. I mean, it's one of those things where you don't know what you're missing until you cut open your first onion, your first potato with a sharp knife, and it's a good quality knife. It just makes all the world of a difference. So, you know, I highly recommend investing some money in some knives. Now, you don't have to buy a complete set all at once. This one was not a set all at once. What I did is I bought a big block, and then I bought different knives, and I kind of built it over time. I mean, they are expensive, but I think it's money well spent. So these guys are the Wulfstoff Icon Classic. This is your chef's knife. You can see it's the Wulfstoff Icon there. But they are, you know, very nice balance. They're very sharp. And actually, funny enough, I'm holding this in my hand, I'm thinking about it. I think it was my first or second video, I said my knives were not very sharp. And what I did is I sent them off to Knife Aid, and they came back amazingly sharp. I had tried to sharpen them myself a couple times, and I've since bought some really, really nice stones, but I was getting some marring on them, and I didn't want to ruin the finish, so I said I wanted to get them professionally done until I figured out how to sharpen them better myself. You know, you can use a steel and you can get a decent edge on it, but it's not actually sharpening. It's just taking the microfiber bends out of the blade and you know, fine-tuning them a little bit. But these guys, you know, these are German. There's really two leaders in this space: Japanese knives and German knives. Do your research and figure out which one's better for you. I think that the Japanese knives are a little bit sharper. They've got a slightly different cut on their blade, but typically they're a little bit more of a brittle because they're a very hard blade. So if you drop them in the sink by mistake or something like that, they can chip a little bit easier. And these ones, you know, you can get them in a little bit better shape with a steel if you need a quick sharpening. But either way, I think you'll be very happy with them. You know, when you get into a good quality knife, they're nicely balanced, and just makes working in the kitchen that much easier. And what you can do is you can buy a couple different ones, right? So this one, you've seen me use this in a couple videos. This is a slicing knife, but this works amazing on brisket. Obviously you can get, you know, a normal slicing knife like you see everywhere else, but this, especially on ribs, if you're trying not to have your ribs come apart a little bit, this gives a really, really clean cut on them, so I do like that. You've got your, you know, your miniature chef's knife. You get into steak knives, you got boning knives. You know, gotta have your bread knife. But you know, you can get any kind of knife you want. They've got a whole bunch. They've got different pair of knives. But what you can do is you can buy one at a time, or you can buy. They've got different promos where they do 3 packs, and just buy yourself a block and build it over time. You know, even if you added a couple new knives every year for a couple years, you'd end up with a really nice set. The other option is you could buy one of their entry-level sets that'll give you some decent knives, and then just buy a bigger block and then build from there. If you buy a set, you will get a little bit of extra money. And actually, now I think about it, I did buy a set, I think of 12, and then I built onto it from there. I bought my steak knife separately, so the set I bought came with 8. I already had 8, so now I've got a full set of steak knives, one that we use every day, and one that I bring out for special occasions. Those are always the sharpest, so I like to save those aside. But I just think having a great set of knives just makes your life easier, and again, if you invest the money and you take care of them, they're going to last you a long time. If you've already got a great thermometer and you're looking for something else that's not quite as expensive as knives, but is a great tool to have, I highly recommend this guy. This is the Breville smoking gun. I'm sure the models have changed a little bit. I know they came out with a Pro after I got mine. This guy's a couple years old, but this thing is a fun little toy to have. Comes with instructions. It does have a cookbook, and Think of this guy like a little hair dryer, right? We've got a high and a low on it. And what happens here is we have our little hopper. It's got a screen in the bottom of it. We've got a tube that's flexible. And then it comes with wood chips. Here's some apple and some hickory. I bought some bigger ones. I've got some mesquite, some cherry wood, applewood, hickory. And then this guy here is actually bourbon. So the one thing I'll tell you, buy the gun, but their wood chips are a little bit pricey, and you can get other aftermarket wood chips there. And what these guys are is they're just very, very fine wood chips. You just put them inside. And then you take your lighter here, put it on high, and voila, we got smoke. All right, I didn't light too much of it. Then you turn it down to low to fill things up. But what I'll do is I'll take some meat, and I'll take a little cake dome here, and just fill that up. I'm not gonna fill it all the way up, I'll have smoke all over the place. But I'll fill up this whole dome with smoke. And I've got a meat rack in there so that it'll get off and the whole area can, or smoke can circulate around it. And you can put any kind of meat in here. Now listen, it's not like putting on your smoker, but I can tell you, if you take some wings and you just wanna add a nice smoky flavor to them at the end, you can put them in here for 15 or 20 minutes and it'll get some great flavor to it. If you like to do bourbon, right, get a wine decanter and you can put some smoke into your bourbon and just fill it up, put a rag on top of the decanter, shake it up, give it about 10 minutes and you'll get a great flavor into that. I've actually taken a pork loin, put the pork loin in my slow cooker, cooked it up to the temperature, shredded it, and then filled it up with smoke, and I've left it on so it's still warm, and I've put smoke in there, and then every 20 minutes I'll fill it up again, cover up the lid, and I'll give it a stir and go through a whole process with it, and maybe put 4 or 5 shots of smoke where it sits in there for 15 minutes or so. And I'll tell you what, I took it to work and people couldn't tell that I didn't do it on my smoker. It really does add some nice flavor into it. You don't need a cake dome. You can put it into a Ziploc bag and throw it in your fridge or whatever. I just like this because it's easier. It allows the smoke to fully circulate around the meat. And as the smoke starts to dissipate, I can just lift up a corner and put some more in there and make sure I'm getting as much smoke in there as possible. We're going to use this a few times over the winter. I really do like to use it, so I'll show you how well it works. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of smoke. So the last thing you should have on your list is a vacuum sealer. Now, most of you have probably seen this style of vacuum sealer. It uses the bags, you roll it out, you cut it, you seal one end, put your food in there and seal the other. Vacuum sealers are very, very handy, especially if you buy any type of bulk meat or anything like that. You can separate it out and vacuum seal it. If you order meat online, you're gonna see that all of their packages are vacuum sealed. And what happens is you remove all the air and the product can just last that much longer. And many times it doubles or triples the length of time that food can stay in the fridge or the freezer. And you can do it for meats, you can do it for different vegetables. You have to be careful on vegetables. Some of them you can't do it to it. They need the gases to escape or it ruins it. But check into that. But there's a whole bunch of different things. You can get into soups. If you ever made homemade meatballs, it's a ton of work. Make a quadruple batch and freeze a whole bunch. That's simply what I do. There are 2 different types. This guy you buy the rolls and you make your bags. You can buy the other bags that are pre-made, but they're a lot more expensive. This particular model has this little pump thing, so you can do a vacuum seal marinade with an attachment I have. And the other thing that I use this for is dry aging meat. So there's a bag you can buy called an umai bag, and find them on Amazon. They're like 30 bucks, and you buy this big long bag. You put a whole loin of meat in it, you vacuum seal it, you put it in your fridge for 30 to 50, maybe 90 days. And what it does is it allows the moisture to escape, but not the odors from the fridge to come into it. And you can dry age at home. We'll be doing a video on that over the winter months. I've done it many times. It's a good way to buy an inexpensive piece of meat and turn it into a much better quality piece of meat. And you know, these things are like 100 bucks. Most people have seen these. And then you go over to this guy. So this guy is what's called a chamber vacuum. The benefits to this is, number one, here's the kind of bags it takes. So I've got two different sizes. I've got a big size and a small size. I think this big size, I could probably get a little bit bigger. There's one size up from that, and you can get different thicknesses. So, you know, I think 2 millimeter to 4 millimeter. Don't quote me on that. I haven't looked at it in a little while. But you can buy hundreds of bags and they're pennies each. It's very, very inexpensive to buy these bags. I just bought a case of 1,000 in these two sizes, and I think it was 80 bucks a case. So it's really, really cheap. This will cost you an arm and a leg long term. These guys are significantly more expensive. I think they're probably $500–600 depending on what you're looking for. They get larger and more expensive. But the benefit to this guy, outside of saving money on the bags, is that you can put a liquid in here. So when I make a homemade soup, it's got a little raised area here, and here's your shear bar. So you can see the bag sits below that shear bar. As long as you don't fit, or seal bar, sorry, as long as you don't fill it up too high, what'll happen is you close it, creates a vacuum, a valve opens, and that entire bag will seal with the liquid, no problem. These guys will not do very well with liquid at all. They will, if you did like maybe a pasta sauce that was pretty thick and didn't have a lot of running liquid in there, you could stop it before the liquids got into the chamber and seal it off. But a soup, I mean, you can't lay soup on the ground. They just don't do a very good job on it. This one does it a lot quicker, and you can just knock out a whole bunch. So, you know, when I do meatballs, I'll usually make 40, and then I'll do individual bags like these guys, and I'll do 3 meatballs with some sauce for myself. If I'm gonna make a family pack for me and my wife, she's only ever gonna eat 2, so I'll put 5 in here, sealed up with a bunch of sauce. And then from there, you can stick this in a sous vide if you have one. You can stick it in a pot of warm water. Don't boil it, it's plastic. But you know, you can warm it up that way very, very easily. You can do the same thing with soups. I've got homemade chicken noodle soup in the fridge, or sorry, the freezer. Just take this out. You can put the whole frozen thing in some water, gently bring it up to temperature. And it's just a great way to prep some food. And also, if you're in the sous vide, makes it very, very easy to put something together, put it in your sous vide. We will do some sous vide cooking over the winter time. I do have one of those, but the great thing about this is I love it that even, you know, my wife, I can make the French dip that I made not too long ago. I've got some extra in the fridge, or sorry, the freezer. I don't know why I keep saying fridge. In the freezer with the au jus and everything. So my wife's gonna turn that up to like 140 in the sous vide, 135, and it can cook all afternoon. And then when I get home, I just pull it out, toast a roll, and away you go. So highly recommend this. Which one's better is totally up to you. The one thing I will tell you, if you want to get into dry aging meat, look up some bags. I think it's UMAI, if I remember correctly. The one drawback to this kind is that you've got a channel here. You have to push the bag into it, if you're gonna get into dry aging and you wanna use those bags, you're better to get one that opens up, because the bags are extra wide, they won't fit in that. So you have to fold one corner in, seal that corner, and then put it in again to seal the whole thing. Getting that corner to seal in here properly so that you can reduce it enough to get into the channel for the second seal is difficult. I usually end up folding over a big area and using a knife to get in there until it starts to catch it and pull the knife away. It's a little bit cumbersome. You can do it, but if you're gonna get into that, I look at one that opened and closed, and it just would make your life a little easier. That's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you found the video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If it was terrible, give it a thumbs down. Either way, it helps the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell while you're down there. Doing new videos every weekend. I'll see you soon.